Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update video today, feedback video as well if you like. Go through some of the comments, have a bit of a chat about what has been happening there in the comment section and a bit of an update on what's happening around the country. We saw yesterday that the government announced the Christmas restrictions, maximum of 10 people allowed to get together at Christmas time. Mobility restrictions as well. It's going to be prohibited to travel around the country during that festive season. So we're not going to be able to take a Christmas break this year on mainland Spain. People won't be allowed to go to the beach. People won't be able to go to other autonomous communities as the borders in those places will be closed. Of course, family members are allowed to travel home for Christmas as long as they don't exceed that maximum limit of 10. Students returning from university, family members that are working in other areas of Spain will be allowed to go home for Christmas. There's no restrictions as far as that is concerned. And there was a lot of debate yesterday after the minister announced these restrictions because of one word that he mentioned, and the word in question was allegados. Because one of the things that he said were that the family gatherings could consist of family members and allegados. Now, what exactly does the word allegado mean, and why was there so much talk about this particular word yesterday? Well, let's have a look at the definition. The word allegado in Spanish means persona cercana a otra en parentesco, amistad, trato o confianza. So if we put that into English, it means close in kinship, friendship, treatment, or trust. So a person close in kinship, friendship, treatment, or trust. Now, if the minister had just said family members yesterday, it wouldn't have been so hard to understand. But of course, putting this other word in opened up a whole new can of worms. Does it mean boyfriends, girlfriends, partners, godparents, close friends, best friends, neighbors maybe? Who knows exactly who could be classified as an allegado here in Spain. The president of Andalusia has come out and said that they're going to clarify exactly what they mean by this. He said there's a lot of nuances surrounding this word and they're going to make it clear next week exactly what it is. And Andalusia is also going to put in its own Christmas restrictions that, as I said, are going to be announced next week. And that's one of the key aspects of this plan as well, that some of the rules and regulations could vary according to where you are in Spain. The Madrid government has announced today that there's going to be crowd restrictions in place until the 8th of January, meaning that they're going to limit the amount of people that can gather in certain areas, for example, Christmas markets. Here in Madrid at this time of year in the Plaza Mayor, which is in the center of the city, you would normally see lots of people going to the Christmas market there. This year, obviously, the amount of people that can be in that square at the one time is going to be limited. And the government has also said that there's going to be no official New Year's Eve celebration in the Puerta del Sol, which is also in the center of Madrid. Normally, thousands and thousands of people would get together there to celebrate the new year. They normally celebrate the countdown to the new year by eating grapes. Every time the clock chimes counting down the seconds to the new year, people stick a grape in their mouth. I think there's 12 grapes. I'm not really sure because I don't really follow this tradition, but if you've ever watched the television here in Spain, it's a pretty big event, and this year apparently it's not going to take place. Now, I saw somebody in the comment section asking how they are going to enforce that 10 people rule at Christmas, and the simple answer to that is that they can't. It's going to be individual responsibility. The government is going to trust families to adhere to that 10-person rule. The police are not going to be breaking down people's doors if there's more than 10, obviously. Maybe if a party is a little bit too big and gets a little bit out of control, somebody might call the police, but in other circumstances there's going to be no control, and as I said, individual responsibility. And as we know, this individual responsibility is going to be fundamental if we want to avoid further health complications in the future. All of the health experts are saying that we need to avoid making the same mistakes that we made in the summertime when the majority of us forgot that the virus even existed, and that of course led us to the situation that we are in now. To put it into some type of context, before the summer, Spain managed to get the incidence rate down to 8 cases per 100,000, and we're currently sitting at an accumulated incidence rate of around 250 in most parts of the country, some places more, some places less, but around that 250 mark. So we saw what happened at the end of summer. Case numbers started to increase, and that's obviously what we need to avoid with this upcoming Christmas period. Now, there was some good news yesterday for the government. The budget gridlock, as one newspaper called it, has finally been broken. They managed to get their budgets passed yesterday in the parliament. Some people are saying that this is the beginning of political stability here in Spain, something that has been lacking for the last 8 or 9 years, ever since these new political parties popped up all over the place and broke the political status quo that was in power before that. when Spain only had two main political parties, the PP and the PSOE, but wow, haven't things changed. One of the vice presidents and the leader of the Podemos party, Pablo Iglesias, came out and said that we are now living in a more plural and more fraternal Spain, and that this socialist communist government that we currently have in place is going to be around for a long time. And those words were also echoed by various members of the government yesterday. Of course, in order to get these budgets passed, the government had to get the support of various political groups around the country, some of the more radical parties, if you like, and some parties that have quite a dubious past in this country. And needless to say that the right-wing opposition parties are not very happy. And there's also a few former high-ranking military officers that are not happy either. Apparently these former military officers had a chat group, and some of the conversations in that chat group have come to light. The press has managed to get their hands on some of these conversations. I don't really want to talk too much about it now, but let's just say that some of the conversations had details of these people explaining what they would like to do to certain members of the current government and the people that voted for them. And this in turn has led to the current head of the armed forces here in Spain coming out and distancing the army from those former high-ranking officials. And another thing that caught my attention in the press today was a survey that was recently published by the CIS. The CIS stands for the Centro de Investigaciones Sociológicas, or in English, the Center for Sociological Research. And they've published a survey about the effects and consequences of the coronavirus on the population here in Spain. And there were some fairly interesting points that can be taken out of the results. We'll take a look at a few of the questions that caught my attention and the results. For example, this one here, question number 2A. In what ways has your family been affected by the coronavirus? And we can see here some of the ways that people have been affected. For example, 38.5% say that they have been affected in economic terms. 40.5% of people say that they have been affected when it comes to work. 31.1% say that they have been affected in health terms. 49.8% of people say that their relationships have been affected and their way of living. And 40.8% of people say that they have been affected emotionally. Another interesting point of the survey with regard to people's feelings, we can see here that 62% of people are feeling more anxious, close to 50% are more irritable, 64.1% are feeling more overwhelmed, and 73.8% of people are uneasier than they were before this pandemic began, and just under 50% are more scared than they were before this pandemic began. And finally, question number 8, would you be willing to be vaccinated immediately, or would you prefer to wait to know the effects of the vaccine, or would you not be willing to get the vaccine under any circumstances? And we can see the results. 32.5% of people said that they would be willing to get the vaccination immediately. 55.2% of people said that they would prefer to wait and see the effects, and only 8.4% of people said that there's no way that they are going to get vaccinated. So there we go. That basically sums up how people are feeling at the moment. People are more anxious, they're more irritable, they're scared, and they're uneasy about the current situation. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out. Let me know if you agree with the results of that survey. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.